Article 3B that says that the Defence Forces shall assist and cooperate with other authorities in situations of emergency or disaster and report to the National Assembly whenever deployed in such circumstances. Or, Part C, the Defence Forces may be deployed to restore peace in any part of Kenya affected by unrest or instability only with the approval of the National Assembly. And I'm talking about the deployment of KDF to assist the police in the operation in the North Rift region. The LSK has written to the Attorney General saying that this decision has to first of all be regularized by Parliament before the KDF can continue their work. But there's an argument from the Interior CS that this is in respect to 241(3)(b) that is talking about an emergency or disaster, which means then it's just to communicate to the National Assembly, not to get approval. I don't know what your thoughts are. Senator Manzo, should KDF go to the north without approval of the National Assembly?
No, the law is specific. It says only with approval of the National Assembly. We were already in session. In fact, that decision was done a day before National Assembly could sit. And it's such a matter of grave nature that the reason the Constitution says it must go to National Assembly, there's a member of Parliament representing that particular area. There's no war. And the army is ordinarily used when there is external aggression. Mm-hmm. These are people who belong to this country. We have no another. It's not. They are not invading us from another country. Mm-hmm. There are people who are known because the government has a machinery to know every single person what they are doing in this country. There is a Nyumba Kumi. And these are communities who are represented by members of Parliament and even MCS. And therefore, I thought that decision was rushed, and the outcome of it has been very grave. For if what I've seen in social media is anything to go by. You know, there's no process to arrive to execute a Kenyan. You see, before they have every capacity. The army or the police have every capacity to be able to apprehend, disarm, and present that person for trial. When you bring in the army, then they have a different legal system of court-martialing. So that decision was wrongly done. With a lot of respect to Professor Kidiki, I had been to his office, and I indicated many other things that they are not doing correctly and need time to, for proper decisions. So on this particular one, I believe it should have come to the floor of the House, National Assembly. The respective members of Parliament would have made contributions, and even we have the police force is enough to deal with the internal matters. Okay. The Minister for Defence is the Honourable Duale, is not Professor Kidiki. So those are two different ministries, even with even different budgets and the different systems of command. Mm-hmm. I believe this is a matter which would have been handled by Professor Kidiki's office internally through the police systems we have, and they would have managed it well. In fact, by even having meetings with those communities, I know he had been there, and even attacks had happened just a few minutes after he left. But this is something which can be sorted internally. It really doesn't need the force of the army. Mm-hmm. Before the army went to DRC Congo, there was approval. So it doesn't fit the situation is trying to quote. Lives have been lost, and I believe somebody should be answerable to the lives which have been lost, whether tried locally or internationally. Those are crimes against humanity.
Oh, all right. And for you, Senator Onyonka, yes, what then should happen? Because there's the contention, and I'll be waiting to hear from the Deputy Speaker. There's that contention whether we're applying 241(3)(b) or 3C. What do you think should happen?
To me, our Constitution is basically mirrored out of like the U.S. Constitution. The President must go and seek the approval of the Congress and Senate for him to pass the resolution that he's taking his military to war. I don't know why the government of UDA, of Kenya Kwanza, I don't know why they decided to just pick the military. There was a reason why constitutionally it was very clear when we can bring in the military or when we cannot bring in the military. We have the police, we have GSU, and we have other paramilitary forces. I believe that President William Ruto is somebody who believes in the rule of law. He already stated that, he already said that, but now what do you find happening? What is happening is you made a unilateral declaration and decision that is going to get the military to get their boots and guns, and it takes them to West Pokot and Turkana. And that is definitely, that's why you see the Law Society of Kenya coming in and saying, we want to challenge this in court, or we are actually asking the president to withdraw that decision that he made.
Right.
Yes.
So why was this so difficult, Honorable Boss? I don't know, first of all, you're persuaded that this is 3C, not 3B. Why was it so difficult to just bring a request to the National Assembly for approval?
Okay, they are correct in that when the army is being deployed, the permission of the parliament, approval of parliament must be sought. Yes, that's the law. But they are forgetting the details of this kind of operation. This operation, the military has been sent there to support the National Police Service, to support the National Police Service. It is not an operation that is being undertaken independently by the Kenya Defence Forces. It is where it is independently being run by the Kenya Defence Forces that you need the approval of Parliament. This deployment is not an independent deployment of KDF. It is a deployment of KDF to support the National Police Service. And it's always important to put things in context. Remember what happened under the Uhuru regime. The police air wing was moved to the military. So as we speak, the police have no air wing of their own. So that when they go to an operation, such as in those bandit-ridden areas, when they can even see that there is a problem at a certain place, they are not able to send air support because they do not have air support of their own. So understanding in that context, the Minister of Interior and the Cabinet Secretary and so on have then saw it wise that they need to send the military to go and support the police service. So there is a distinction.
What part of the Constitution?
The law,
just hold on,
when you have a law, there are certain qualifiers. The qualifier here is that it's not an independent
speaking about the
operation.
Constitution.
So you do not require parliamentary approval. What part of the Constitution
supports the deployment of KDF to support the National Police Service without the approval of Parliament?
It is when it is not an independent operation of KDF requires parliamentary approval. When the KDF is going in to support the National
That's what I'm
Police
asking.
Service.
Which law are you reading? Which section of the Constitution are you reading to support that?
If you look at Article 241, the one you read, it talks about when when the army is deployed. Yes.
Yes.
And I think Atiku, if you
just call me Sam.
Sam, I'll call you Sam. Yeah, my Kalenjin accent is coming in. You remember in 2008, the same operation was done. So there is a practice.
That was before the new constitution.
Yes, but even then in 2008, the deployment was to support the police.
That's what I'm asking.
So, and in this case,
I don't have a problem with that.
I think, like I said, we've reached a point where we want to pick hairs on everything, forgetting what we want to try and achieve. You're forgetting the context that they don't have any air support. When the CS was in a certain region and they could see bandits across, the police were not able to send air support because they had none. Because all of it is in the army at the moment. 100 civilians have been killed. 16 police officers have been killed, including a young man from Wasingishu County. Do you think we are going to start picking hairs now and saying we have... the law, you're creating your law as you go ahead. There is no law that prohibits. There is no law that prohibits the army being sent to support. The army has been sent sometimes to support, to distribute food. Army has been sent sometimes to build bridges where there has been floods. The army has sometimes been sent to go and help sinking vessel in the sea. Yes, without the approval of Parliament, because they are supporting the Coast Guard or they are supporting another institution.
Deputy Speaker,
the army every day supports.
That's accurate.
Yes.
And 241(3)(b) says the defense forces shall assist and cooperate with other authorities in situations of emergency or disaster and report to the National Assembly whenever deployed in such circumstances.
The death of 100 civilians is not an emergency?
No. I'm reading.
Okay.
What you're saying, a sinking vessel, that's an emergency or a disaster. And
so is the death of 100 civilians and 16 police officers.
And the Law Society of Kenya, which you're a member of, says that that doesn't qualify to be an emergency, neither a disaster. And their reading is that is 241(3)(c) that may be deployed to restore peace in any part of Kenya affected by unrest or instability only with the approval of the National Assembly.
That is a matter of interpretation. Already the CS has notified Parliament of his decision to send the KDF to support the IG. If this is the first time this issue is being raised, let it then be taken to court. The court will interpret the law. The LSK obviously has its own interpretation. And remember, when we talk about LSK, we have a council and we have a team that normally makes that decision. They don't refer to us. If they had referred to me, I'd have probably given them a different interpretation. Okay. But in any case, currently we know lives are being saved. I don't think the court is going to halt the operations of KDF in going to save lives. It's not going to do that. It's not unreasonable, because it also realizes that sometimes expediency is the most important thing. Let us save lives first. Okay. So, and if it's a matter of interpretation, let it go to the court. Let the court give it an interpretation. And if we find that interpretation cuts us in such a thin jacket that we will not be able to save lives, then we will amend the law. That is life.
Senator Nyonka,
so nothing is lost about it.
I'm listening to the Speaker, Madam Speaker, here, and I'm shocked. Why am I shocked? Some 3 months ago, they were screaming all over the place how President Uhuru doesn't follow the law. President Uhuru is actually breaking the constitution. President Uhuru and his counter friend Raila are basically dictators who have just... It is very simple, Madam Speaker. Please follow the law. What if you decide you are going to follow the law? Let's follow the law. If you decide we are going to break the law and then wait for the Supreme Court to interpret it, tell us we do that.
We are following the law.
My understanding. Exactly.
You have a different interpretation.
Thank you.
And that's the exciting thing about law.
In fact, Sammy, I don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
Everybody in Kenya should follow the law according to the understanding. Whatever the consequences, it should be according to the understanding. If President Ruto decides, for example, to proceed in the next 5 years or 10 years to decide he's going to be president for the next 100 years, that will be up to his understanding. So that what Madam Sholei is saying...
I don't think that's what she's saying.
What is she saying? That's why I'm confused. Can she clarify for me?
What we are saying is...
What is she saying? According to you, Sammy, what is she saying?
Okay,
what you do, the Constitution...
Ask me what I'm saying.
Wait, Mama.
Let me
the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, what the Constitution says is very simple. Before you deploy a military team from the Kenya Army, from the Kenya Defense Forces, please seek permission or authority from the National Assembly. Only. That is all. And we would have given the President that authority. Now you people have gone, you've got our troops, these troops who some of them have died, like you've said, and there are about 100 people who have died. Now, what somebody is going to do is come back and ask you, yes, it is okay. Yes, the president made the decision. In fact, the argument, Sam, why the speaker is saying that the Kenya police doesn't have the air wing. The reason why, because I have a brother who used to fly those things. The reason why we had a problem with the air wing was because the maintenance that was being done with the police was actually substandard. So these helicopters were taken over to the military for maintenance. It has nothing to do with somebody saying don't put the helicopters in the police because the military has taken over. No. And Honorable Sholei, I completely agree with you people in Kenya Kwanza. Let us follow the law to the letter. That is how you make a country of posterity. Okay. No. But if we make political decisions or economic decisions or make military decisions according to how we interpret that law, it is commonsensical. Who is the Law Society of Kenya? It's not the chairman of the Matatu Association of Kenya. This is the chairman of all the lawyers in Kenya. Their board has made a decision that saying this thing is illegal.
Okay. You should just allow me to say something.
Finally, let you people just admit, you say the president actually may not have known, or his advisors may not have told him what he is. So please, we'll work on it.
No, Senator, the letter from the CS Interior said that further it is clarified that the operation in the area specified in the aforesaid Kenya Gazette notices is police-led with assistance from the military with the remit of Article 243(3)(b). As such, no prior approval of the National Assembly is required, as would be the case for a military-led operation. So that's the understanding.
Let me ask you, who made the announcement about the military going there?
It was CS Defense.
So what are you saying? Kindiki doesn't have to write anything. Who made the announcement that in fact the president has made this decision of getting the military to go to Kainuk and fight with the police?
Okay, I think Sam, allow me to say,
the members of parliament, are you going to do anything about that?
No, let's do this. Yeah. I think let's be fair. Also, like I said, you're speculating. The fact that a CS of defense announces something, that is an announcement. The decision-making process happens in the boardroom, and the decision is held in the documentations that were made. There are minutes of cabinet. There are minutes of discussions and meetings relating to this. That is where the decision is made. The announcement is just conveying the decision that has already been made in the back room. So you cannot say, by the fact that, even now, by the mere fact that I'm just vocalizing certain decisions that have been made, doesn't mean I am the decision maker. So I think that is looking at it too simplistically, because you want to find fault. And if somebody wants to find fault, they will always find fault. And the reality is Kenya is a common law system. In a common law system, we interpret the law. If my interpretation of the law, I go and argue in court and say, this was my interpretation. And then he says his interpretation. Then the interpretation will be made by the judge. Now that becomes law. Right. So at the moment, there is not that confirmed. This is the interpretation, and the minister will only have to show the court that he was acting in good faith. If the interpretation is clarified, it's for future operations. And we've said this has happened. There is a precedent. It has happened in the past.
That's fine, Deputy Speaker, I hear you.
Just similarly, and I just want to say, when somebody is making an interpretation that doesn't agree with, then it has a problem. But when he makes his own interpretation, for example, just a few minutes ago, he interpreted that transmission of results to Bomas is the final decision. Yet we know very clearly my interpretation of the law is the announcement made at the polling station was final, and the results brought
That's
to
not
Bomas,
what I said.
And the results brought to Bomas were the ones that were brought in hard copy that had been announced at the constituency.
You are misinterpreting what I said.
They are exactly the same.
You are misinterpreting
So you
what I
are
said.
choosing and picking.
All right.
We must desist from choosing and picking when it suits us, and we want to raise false alarms about issues.
I hear you.
Because they seem to find, when people have died, when children are not going to school, when there is mayhem in a certain area, you're living comfortably, you're in Nairobi, then you want to now say, when people are going to be rescued, there's something wrong with it.
What does the law say? Follow the law.
Just
follow the law. Follow the law. The law says it.
We have followed the law.
You know, we all live in Kenya.
Right.
We know what the president announced in Nakuru during the prayers. And we also know that these people were given a notice of 7 days or so to return whatever firearm anybody could be having, which probably may not have been
3 days.
3 days.
Yep.
And then what followed that is military was deployed. At the moment you deploy military and the parliament was already in session, you must really go to the National Assembly. The reason why you must go to the National Assembly, that particular region of Kenya is represented by members of parliament who must come and air and even defend the situation, and everybody looks forward into a situation. What has happened out of the breaking of the law by the state is there was no process, and the people's lives have been lost, and they have a right to be followed both locally and internationally. An international crime has been committed, and therefore the government has goofed. It is good to accept and correct for the future so that we don't kill innocent Kenyans. Somebody said what is going to happen is similar to Wangala massacre, and that is what has happened. It is illegal, it is unconstitutional, and the president should take responsibility.
Okay.